They came like shadows, silent and unstoppable. The Valen horde, the most feared race in the quadrant, never spoke, never offered peace, never left survivors. Planet after planet, ship after ship, species after species, gone, vaporized, enslaved, torn from the stars without a word. No one fought back. Not really. They tried, sure, but every attempt ended the same. Failure, fire, silence. And then there was Earth, or what was left of it. The human race didn't go quietly. That wasn't in their blood. They were too stubborn, too unpredictable, too damn angry. By the time the Velans reached the Sol system, Earth was a cracked ball of ash. But not dead. No, humanity had a habit of thriving in the rubble. Underground cities, asteroid belts turned into homes, war-forged colonies floating in deep voids. One of them, a ship not much larger than a freighter, had earned a name in whispers. The Crucible. Most in the galaxy dismissed it. One vessel. One human crew. No chance. But they didn't know what the Crucible carried. Not really. He sat alone in the cockpit, boots kicked up, jaw clenched around a toothpick. The lights of distant stars danced across his scarred face. Cole Harlan, pilot, engineer, soldier, no rank, no uniform, just a man who'd seen too much and lost even more. His eyes weren't cold. They were burnt out, like an engine that had been pushed past its limit one too many times. He wasn't a hero. He never wanted to be. He was just tired of running. "Reading Spike on scanner grid," said a voice behind him, gravelly, old. Riggs, the ship's AI. Not clean and polite like most AIs. This one was grumpy, outdated, and carried the voice of an old war dog. "Velen patrol, 6 clicks out, 3 vessels, cruisers." Cole didn't flinch. "Let 'em come." Riggs' word. "You do realize they'll scan the Crucible. Once they realize what this ship carries." "They won't get the chance." He stood, walked to the command table, and pressed his palm to the surface. Lights flickered. A red glow pulsed from beneath, revealing the ship's secret. A chamber buried deep in the hull, wrapped in lead, radiation shielding and pain. The core. It wasn't a weapon, at least not in the traditional sense. It was worse. Human-made, born from desperation, refined by sacrifice. A singularity engine that didn't just bend physics, it strangled it. One activation, and it would create a gravity well strong enough to shred a planet into dust. He wasn't bluffing. He was done with speeches, done with treaties. The galaxy had treated humanity like an infection, a disease that spread too fast, too loud, too unpredictable. Every major council had turned their backs when Earth burned. Now Cole was the disease, and he was done apologizing for it. The Velans appeared on the viewport, sleek, black, winged monsters with claws for docking clamps and glowing red veins down their hulls. Predators, unbeatable. But they didn't open fire. Not yet. One of the ships sent a message. No words, just a signal. Surrender. Or die. Cole chuckled. Cute. He flipped a switch on the table. The core began humming. The walls shook. Riggs' voice cracked through the intercom. "This is suicide." "No," Cole said. "This is history." The Crucible's forward cannons locked onto the lead Velan ship. Cole's fingers hovered above the ignition panel for the core. The countdown could begin at any second. One press, and they all die. All of them. Him included. But maybe, just maybe, the galaxy needed to see what it meant to push a human too far. He opened the comm line. This time his voice would carry across space. To the Velans, to the council fleets listening in secret, to the scavengers watching from asteroid fields, to every coward who'd sold out humanity. "I'm not here to make a point," he said, low and cold. "I'm here to remind you what you left behind. You thought Earth died, but you forgot one thing." He leaned forward, eyes locked on the lead ship. "We're not dead. We're just pissed off." The comms line went dead. Silence spread like oil across the bridge. The Valen ships didn't move. Not yet. Cole stood motionless, one hand resting on the core's ignition panel, the other hanging loose at his side like a gunslinger waiting on the twitch of an enemy's eye. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. Riggs finally cracked the silence. "They're confused." Cole smirked. "Good. You know they don't know fear the way we do. Not biologically, not like us." "They will." A quiet beeping broke through the tension, passive sensors picking up transmissions, encrypted, panicked, military grade. Cole leaned over the monitor, words scrolled fast, some in alien scripts, others in broken Terran standard. "Unknown human vessel active. Coordinates confirmed. Is the core online? Confirm. Do not engage the crucible. Repeat, do not engage." So they were listening. Cowards. Every species that watched humanity burn. Every species that pretended they didn't see. Now they remembered Earth. Now they remembered what humans were capable of when pushed into a corner with nothing left to lose. Riggs sighed through the speakers, like a tired old man puffing on a ghost cigarette. "You sure about this?" "No." Cole's voice was flat, honest. "I should have died years ago, but I didn't. I watched my brother's carrier get cracked open in orbit. I pulled my mother out of the rubble with half her face burned off. She died choking on ash. My wife—" He stopped. A long pause filled the room. "She held our daughter when the missiles hit. I found her shoes 5 miles from the crater." His voice didn't shake. His hands didn't tremble. It wasn't bravado. It was emptiness. "I'm not doing this because I want revenge," he said. "I'm doing this because no one else would." Riggs didn't reply. He didn't need to. Outside, the lead Valen cruiser shifted slightly. Its wings adjusted, and a dark violet light began pulsing along its underbelly. The weapon system. It was charging slowly, deliberately, a warning. Cole narrowed his eyes. "Looks like they're thinking about calling my bluff." "Statistically," Riggs muttered, "you have a 0.4% chance of winning this encounter." "That high, huh? I rounded up." Cole chuckled dryly. "Nice of you." Another signal buzzed across the comms. A voice this time. Metallic. Guttural. The Valen language wasn't meant for translation. It was built on frequencies that sliced through lesser species' brains like razors. But Cole didn't flinch. He didn't need a translator. The message was clear. Stand down, or be erased. Cole clicked the comm switch again. No. That was all he said. One word. The violet pulse on the Valen cruiser turned red. They were done talking. Suddenly, the crucible's hull vibrated violently. Alarms wailed. The core's hum pitched upward. Riggs shouted over the system. "Target lock! Incoming energy lance! Brace!" The crucible spun hard left. Cole slammed the manual controls, tearing the ship into a stomach-churning barrel roll as a beam of pure plasma sliced the void where they'd just been. The light was blinding. The force of the near miss rocked them sideways. Panels exploded. Sparks flew. A bulkhead split open near the engineering bay, but they were still alive. "Return fire!" Cole barked. The twin nose cannons of the crucible opened up with thunderous percussion, not lasers, not plasma, kinetic rounds, slug throwers the size of dumpsters, burning with chemical fury, old-school human engineering, primitive, dirty, brutal, and beautiful. One round slammed into the Velan cruiser's side, not enough to destroy it, but enough to send it veering, its shields flickering under the unexpected assault. Valans weren't used to kinetic warfare. Most species in the galaxy had evolved past it. Humans never did. They knew better. Riggs grinned through the speakers. That woke him up. Good, Cole hissed, reloading the next barrage. Let's remind the bastards. The other two Valan ships flanked right and left, forming a triangle formation, standard protocol for eliminating threats. The crucible should have been torn apart in seconds. That's what the simulations always said. But simulations never accounted for desperation. The crucible wasn't fast. It wasn't stealthy. It wasn't even well armored. But it had Cole. He weaved through their formation like a madman. One blast caught their aft engines. They spun, twisted, and dipped. Another volley slammed into a Velan drone launcher, causing an eruption of smaller crafts to detonate in mid-flight. The sky lit up with burning metal and screams, inhuman, robotic, and raw. But it wasn't enough. The Valans adapted, fast. The lead cruiser powered up its core cannon, something far more devastating than the previous lance. A sphere of energy formed beneath it, drawing in surrounding light like a dying star. Riggs shouted, "Cole, you fire that core now, it's over for everyone." "I know." "So what's the play?" Cole stared at the screen. Calculated, measured, weighted. Then, just as the sphere hit critical mass, he turned off the crucible's engines. The ship stalled. Dead in space. "No heat, no thrust, no signature," Riggs whispered. "You're making us look like debris." The Velans hesitated. The cannon flickered. Too late. Cole slammed the ignition back on and launched a barrage directly beneath the cannon's charging sphere. It imploded. Not exploded, imploded, ripping the front half of the Valan cruiser inwards like a crushed can. Metal screamed, fire danced, and then silence. The other two Valan ships froze, just for a second. But Cole felt it. Hesitation. He'd seen that hesitation before, from soldiers, gangsters, corrupt politicians. That flicker of uncertainty when they realized the thing they were about to kill wouldn't go quietly. Cole leaned back, sweat beating down his temples. "They're not gods," he muttered. "They bleed." One of the Valan ships blinked out of sight. Warp jumped out. Retreat! The other one stayed. It wasn't done. This one didn't fire weapons. It sent a new signal. But it wasn't a threat. It was a scan. Riggs frowned. "They're not locking weapons. They're analyzing." "The core?" "No," Cole said, eyes narrowing. "Me?" The scan pulsed again. Direct, intimate. It wasn't looking for energy readings or firepower, and it was studying him. Brain waves, stress levels, rage patterns, reflex time. A shiver crept down his spine. "They're trying to understand." That, Riggs said quietly, should terrify them more than any weapon. Cole glared at the screen. "Then let's give them a lesson." He activated the long-range transmitter and opened every frequency across the quadrant. The crucible's signal screamed into every ear, every feed, every coward that ever looked away. "This is Cole Harlan, human, last-born of a dying Earth." He paused. "You let them erase us. You let them burn our cities, enslave our children, silence our dead. You thought we'd go quietly." Another pause, deeper now, sharper. "You forgot something." He stepped aside as the core surged behind him, its glow growing darker, more violent. "You forgot what happens when the last man standing has nothing left to lose." The crucible drifted in silence. The wreckage of the Velan cruiser spun in slow orbit nearby, half of it still glowing with plasma burns. One of its engines sputtered and died in the void, leaving behind a trail of leaking gas that glistened like silver blood. Cole stood alone on the observation deck. His jaw clenched tight as his eyes traced the remains. He didn't feel triumph, just a deeper emptiness. The second Velan ship still lingered, its dark silhouette unmoving, predatory, watching. It wasn't attacking. It was studying. Riggs's voice echoed through the speakers, a low hum of unease. They're scanning every emission off this ship. Thermal traces, EM signatures, even brain waves. They're not here to fight anymore. They're here to learn, Cole murmured. They didn't expect resistance. They expected a tomb. You gave them a lesson in pain. You think that means they're scared? Cole turned slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Number, they're intrigued. And that was worse. He walked back to the war table, flicked through the sensor readings, then froze. Riggs, he said, his voice sharpening. Is this real? The AI paused, confirming, yeah, it's real. What the hell are the Coalition ships doing here? On the screen, half a dozen Council Coalition battlecruisers had dropped out of warp at the edge of the sector. Massive, regal ships with glowing banners and diplomatic shielding. They weren't here to fight. They were here to observe. Cowards. Traitors. Cole's knuckles turned white as he gripped the edge of the table. The Coalition hadn't fired a single shot during Earth's fall. When the Valens came, when the skies tore open and the oceans boiled, the United Galactic Council issued only sanctions, not against the Valens, but against Earth for provoking conflict. They called humanity unstable, aggressive, dangerous. They let Earth die. And now they showed up, hovering like vultures on the edge of a fight they never intended to join. They want to see if I survive, Cole said bitterly, or if the Velans finish what they started. Riggs gave a dry chuckle. Maybe they're betting on the underdog. Doubt it. They're here to document, not interfere. The AI's tone shifted. There's another incoming vessel. Cole's jaw clenched. Velan? Number human signature. Old ID tag. You're not gonna like this. The screen blinked. A new blip appeared, small, fast, and marked with the insignia Cole hadn't seen in years. UFS Nomad. A government vessel, specifically a diplomatic envoy. What the hell are they doing here? Cole growled. Riggs clicked with distaste. You said it earlier. The galaxy finally remembered humans exist, and someone up high wants to put a leash back on you before this spirals. Cole didn't answer. He just stared at the screen. The comms chimed. Incoming transmission. The voice that followed was as smug as it was cold. Cole Harlan, this is Acting Commander Bryn Delos of the Unified Frontier Senate. We request immediate boarding of the Crucible under Emergency Article 7 of the Post-Terra Accord. Power down your core and prepare for inspection. Cole didn't speak. Not yet. The voice droned on. We appreciate your resistance against Velan aggression, but as you know, the Crucible's core was classified as a non-deployable experimental asset. Your unauthorized possession and activation. Cole slammed the comms panel. Save the speech, he snapped. A long pause. Then Bryn responded, his voice clipped. You're endangering the last remnants of human stability. If the Velans retaliate... They already retaliated, Cole cut in. They retaliated when they turned continents into glass, when they vaporized our oceans, when they used our people for organ harvests and neural mapping experiments. He leaned close to the mic. And you, Sat on your hands while the sky fell. Bryn didn't answer. Cole's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You abandoned Earth. Now you want to crawl back when there's one man left to carry the fire. Another silence. Then Bryn replied, but this time his tone had shifted. It's not just about you anymore. We've seen what the core can do. If that power falls into the wrong hands, we risk galactic war. Cole laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. It's already in the wrong hands. Mine. And with that, he shut the comms. He walked back towards the core chamber. Riggs buzzed nervously. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to finish what they started. You can't activate a full surge. You'll destroy everything in a 2 AU radius, including yourself. Not yet, Cole said, but they don't know that. He opened a secondary channel. This time not just to the Velan ship or the envoy, but to the entire quadrant, every frequency, every system. He wanted everyone to hear him. The crucible's signal lit up like a flare across the stars. This is Cole Harlan. I'm not a soldier, not a diplomat. I'm the last man left with teeth. He paused, letting the silence press in. You watched Earth burn. You said we were too violent, too chaotic, too primitive. You let the Velans slaughter us while you hid behind your treaties and your statistics. He turned toward the core. You wanted to erase us. But here's the thing about humans. We don't vanish. We don't fade. He activated the core's pulse cycle, a visible buildup that would look from the outside like the weapon was minutes away from full detonation. I'm not begging. I'm not negotiating. I'm reminding you. Outside the ship, the Velan vessel shifted backward, ever so slightly. For the first time in recorded history, a Velan ship displayed a detectable hesitation response. Riggs whispered, almost reverently, They're backing off. They understand now, Cole said. The coalition fleet didn't move. Neither did the envoy. They just watched, paralyzed by indecision, haunted by the ghost of the species they left behind. Cole's voice dropped to a cold whisper. We were the monsters you were afraid we'd become. And now, you should be. Then he killed the signal. The core hummed in darkness, its charge holding steady but restrained. Cole didn't want to blow up the galaxy. Not yet. But he wanted them to think he might. Because that was power. Real power, not technology, not fleets. Reputation. Riggs broke the silence. So, what now? Cole looked out the viewport at the stars. They'll talk, they'll whisper, they'll rewrite history to make themselves feel better. But they'll remember. He walked back to the pilot's chair and slumped into it. The adrenaline was fading now. The weight was coming back. He felt every scar, every ghost. Riggs hesitated, then spoke gently. You okay? No, Cole said honestly. Then, after a moment, but I'm not dead, and that counts for something. On the edge of the system, the Velan ship turned, slowly, and slipped into warp. Retreat. Not from a fleet, not from a nation, from a man. Cole Harlan, the last living defiance of Earth. The crucible floated in silence once more. No alarms, no weapons fire, just the low hum of the core beneath Cole's boots and the distant glow of 1,000 watching stars. But the quiet wasn't peace. It was pressure. Waiting. The galaxy had seen what happened. The Velans had blinked. The Council had watched. And Cole Harlan, just one man, one ship, had left a scar on the galaxy's pride that would never fully heal. Riggs cracked through the silence, voice low and cautious. You made history, Cole. The feeds are lighting up like wildfire. Pirate bands, independent systems, even black market news networks. They're calling you the Ghost of Terra. Cole didn't respond. He sat with his head low, hands laced together, staring into the void like it owed him answers. Don't care what they call me, he muttered. Not a ghost, not a hero. Riggs paused. Then what are you? Cole's voice was sharp, cold. I'm a mirror, letting them see what they let happen. Silence followed. But not for long. A sharp ping cut through the bridge. Another incoming message, Riggs said. Encrypted, not Coalition. Definitely not Velan. It's bouncing off old Earth relay beacons, stuff that was shut down during the evacuation. Cole frowned. Put it through. A hiss, static, then a voice, female, rough with a distinct Terran accent. Crucible, this is Faye Riddick of the Black Aegis Resistance. We saw what you did. We need to talk. Cole stiffened. The name hit like a brick. Faye Riddick, the last commander of Earth's covert defense grid. She'd been presumed dead in the siege of Mars' outer colonies. Rumor was she'd been executed after surrendering to the Velans. But this voice was very much alive. Riggs whistled. Well, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Cole didn't hesitate. Patch her through. Full channel. A woman appeared on the screen. Older now, gray in her hair, a long scar across her cheek, but her eyes burned with that same flame Cole remembered from the old war days. Been a while, she said. Didn't think you were still breathing. Cole leaned back in his chair. Didn't think you were either. Faye didn't smile. That stunt you pulled out there scared the living hell out of the council. Good. They're calling you a terrorist. Better. She raised an eyebrow. And the Velans? They left. That stopped her, just for a second. Then she nodded slowly, like she was trying to convince herself it was true. Goddamn, she whispered. One ship. Cole's voice was flat. Not the ship. The threat. You're saying they backed off because they believed you'd detonate the core? They didn't believe, Cole said. They knew. Faye sat back in her chair. For the first time, there was something in her expression that wasn't resistance or pride. It was hope. The resistance needs you, she said. You're the only symbol we've got left that scares them. I'm not looking to be a symbol, Cole said. I don't wear flags. I don't give speeches. You don't have to, she replied. Just showing your face did more than 50 years of politics ever could. Every outer system is watching now. Hell, even the trade syndicates are talking about breaking off from the council. You gave them a crack. Now they want in. Cole's jaw clenched. You don't know what it cost. Faye looked away. Her voice dropped. Actually, I do. She leaned forward, something hard settling in her gaze. Earth fell because the council made a deal with the Velans. Cole's stomach twisted. Say that again. You heard me. It wasn't incompetence. It wasn't cowardice. It was collusion. She tapped a data chip into her console. I have logs. Backdoor channels between High Counselors and Velan envoys. They agreed to let Earth fall in exchange for tech, Velan hypercore algorithms, neural implants, genetic sequencing data. We were sold off like cargo. Cole's fingers dug into the console. He'd always suspected. But hearing it from someone who'd been there, it made his blood go cold. Faye leaned in. That ship of yours? The Crucible? It was designed using stolen Velan architecture. The Council was already building their own fleet using the pieces of our dead. I helped design this ship, Cole whispered. They told me it was a last-stand project. They lied. It was never meant to fight. It was meant to test. Cole stood slowly, his fists shaking. They watched Earth die, used the data to build weapons, and left us to rot. Faye nodded once. And now they're scared that the weapon turned around. Cole paced the bridge, fury burning like acid in his chest. So what's your plan? He asked finally. You want me to fly into the heart of Council space and blow them apart? Faye smirked. Not yet. First we expose them, broadcast the logs, show every system what they did. And then... She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. We bring the crucible to their doorstep and see how many of them still want to rule when you're staring back at them. Riggs broke in, grumbling. Sounds like a suicide mission. Cole didn't answer. He just turned to the viewport again, staring out into the galaxy that had left his people to die. No, he said finally, not suicide. Then he looked back at Faye. It's vengeance. It took less than 40 minutes for the crucible's signal to go viral. Faye Riddick's data upload pulsed through relay beacons and darknets like wildfire, uncut council comm logs, trade records, encrypted voice memos between high-ranking officials and Valen envoys. No disclaimers, no context, just raw betrayal. Every system that received the crucible's feed now knew the same truth. Humanity hadn't fallen by chance. It was sold for tech, for peace, for a future that didn't include them. Riggs watched the explosion of reaction across the crucible's screens, live feeds, subspace chatter, panicked coalition broadcasts trying to spin the story. The council blamed malicious editing, terrorist propaganda, even synthetic hallucination warfare. But it wasn't working, because this time the people had a face to attach to the truth. Cole Harlan, the man who stared down the Velans, the man who lit the match. Congratulations, Riggs said, his voice filled with a grim sort of pride. You're officially public enemy number 1. Cole didn't smile. He stood at the edge of the command deck, arms folded, staring at the tactical display of known council bases and trade routes. His mind wasn't on fame. He was planning what came next. You think they'll come for us? Riggs asked. Cole didn't even blink. Not yet. They'll try to discredit first. Call me unstable, dangerous. Maybe leak a few fake videos of me executing prisoners or blowing up civilian ships. You gonna deny it? Cole looked down at his scarred hands. No. Riggs was silent for a moment. You really think the galaxy's gonna follow a man who doesn't care about his reputation? They don't follow men, Cole said. They follow fire, fear, rage. I'm not here to be liked. He tapped the console, zooming in on a council relay hub orbiting the outer moons of Relenvu. But I'll be remembered. Faye's voice crackled in through the comms again. She'd set up temporary command on an old mining cruiser retrofitted with jammers and thick armor plating. Her crew, the remains of Earth's off-grid military, called themselves the Ashborn now. A dozen systems just pulled their ambassadors from the council, she said. Even the Varnic Syndicate. That's not nothing. Cole's response was simple. Not enough. Faye sighed. You're not going to win this in a day, Harlan. You exposed the council's deal with the Velans, yes, but they still control 80% of the quadrant's supply chains. If you hit them too hard, too fast. I'm not here for balance, he snapped. We tried balance. Earth tried diplomacy. You saw what it got us. She didn't argue. She couldn't, because Cole was right. We start with the relay at Relin 5, he continued. Shut down their broadcast choke point. That'll give Resistance Fleet space to move without being tracked. You're outnumbered. I don't need numbers. I've got the crucible, he cut the line. 2 days later, the crucible dropped out of warp just outside the orbital arc of Relin 5. The Council relay station hung like a cathedral in space, sleek, overbuilt, lined with transmission dishes and glowing nodes. Dozens of lightships docked to it, buzzing like parasites. Its main defense grid wasn't huge, just 4 gun platforms and 2 patrol corvettes, but its eyes were deadly. Anything that moved through this part of space without clearance was tagged, tracked, and buried. Riggs pulled up the internal schematics, stolen from a hacked Coalition logistics channel. "They store personnel files here," he said, scanning. "Every known dissident, every defector. If we take this thing offline, we'll give every outlaw and resistance cell a chance to breathe." Cole nodded. "Then we don't just destroy it. We make a show of it." He powered up the Crucible's broadcast systems again. The Crucible's signal cut through open channels, bold, public, to every station officer, every Coalition admiral, every pirate, traitor, and soldier watching from the shadows. Cole Harlan's voice echoed across the stars. "This is a message to the Council's elite," he paused. "I'm coming for your lies." The station panicked. Corvettes scrambled, gun turrets locked on. Cole didn't wait. He dropped the Crucible into a spindrift dive, a move that should have torn the hull apart at that speed. But the Crucible was built for hell. The kinetic shields held just long enough for him to fly straight between the turrets, spraying rounds at point-blank range. Explosions tore through the station's outer defenses. Antennae snapped, dishes shattered. Riggs laughed like a war-drunk devil. "We're blindfolding the whole damn galaxy!" The first corvette launched torpedoes. Cole dipped beneath them, fired counter-spread mines, and looped behind the ship in a maneuver he'd learned on backwater racing freighters. The torpedoes turned, found new targets, and slammed straight into the corvette's engines. Fire bloomed in the void. The second corvette opened a broadside. One shot clipped the Crucible's port wing. The hull groaned. Warning lights screamed. Cole ignored them. He rolled the ship hard and unleashed the graviton burst, an experimental pulse weapon built from core energy. The wave didn't destroy, it crushed. Bent metal, cracked glass. The corvette twisted into itself like paper, then detonated in silence. Riggs gasped. "Holy hell, that thing works!" "It better," Cole said. "It cost me half my sanity." The station's command signal began broadcasting distress calls. Too late. Cole fired a final volley straight into the main relay chamber. Kinetic rounds so dense they tore straight through reinforced shielding. The chamber imploded, lights flaring like a dying sun. And then, silence. No data, no signals, no eyes. The Council had just gone deaf. Hours later, word spread fast. The Resistance dubbed it the Blackout Raid. Independent colonies started pulling out of their Council contracts. And the Valens? They stayed quiet, not from fear of reprisal, from calculation. They'd seen what Cole had done with one ship. Now they were trying to understand his mind, his tactics, his limits. Riggs summarized it best. "You're not a man to them anymore. You're a variable." Cole sat quietly in the Crucible's galley, hands wrapped around a cup of synth coffee he wouldn't drink. He stared at the wall like he could see straight through it. He wasn't celebrating. He was remembering. Faye's voice crackled in over the private channel. "You all right?" "No," he said. "You should rest." "Can't." She hesitated, then finally asked, "What's really driving you, Harlan?" "Revenge." He didn't answer for a long time. Then, quietly, "No. Not revenge." She waited. "It's grief," he said at last. "The kind that doesn't heal. The kind that turns you into something else. Something no one can reason with." She understood, because she felt it too. The Crucible hadn't moved in 16 hours, drifting in a dark sector between known territories, surrounded by dust fields and ancient mining debris. It sat quiet, No active scans, no broadcasts, and no heat signatures. Just a cold, sleeping shadow with a heartbeat of nuclear thunder buried deep inside. Cole hadn't slept. He couldn't, not after what Faye had just told him. "They didn't just make a deal," she said. "They used us. The war wasn't a loss. It was a harvest." He sat on the floor of the crucible's core chamber, arms resting on his knees, staring at the pulsing machine that had become both his weapon and his burden. "They handed us over," she continued, "to the Velans, in exchange for a neural mapping program. They weren't after Earth's tech. They were after how we think." Cole's voice was barely a whisper. Emotion. Faye nodded through the cracked comm screen. "Fear, rage, defiance. No other species in the quadrant processes loss like we do. The Velans wanted to study it, to learn how to weaponize it." He felt the walls closing in, every scream he'd heard, every body he'd buried, every inch of ground he'd watched burn. They hadn't been tragedies. They were data points. He stood slowly, as if rising from the weight of a collapsed world. "And the Council?" he asked. "Gave them a backdoor into our minds?" she said. "They called it Project Him." Riggs cut in suddenly. "I've found traces," he said grimly. "Old Council archives, buried deep, redacted files with embedded Velan signatures. Project Him isn't just research. It's a prototype." Cole narrowed his eyes. "Prototype of what?" "Human behavioral override," Riggs said. "Thought redirection, reflex nullification, neural rewriting." "Mind control." "Yeah," Riggs replied, "but only one subject ever survived full implantation." Cole froze. Faye looked away. "You're not going to like this?" "Who?" Riggs pulled the file to the main screen. A face appeared. It was cracked, covered in cybernetic scars and Velan wiring. Half man, half machine. The eyes were artificial, flat silver, dead. But the name was unmistakable. Declan Harlan. Cole's brother. His voice dropped into a haunted rasp. "That's not possible." "He didn't die in the Saturn front," Faye said softly. "They captured him, used him, turned him into the first prototype." Cole stepped back from the screen, chest tight. He remembered the last time he'd seen Declan. Bloody, grinning like a lunatic, dragging a plasma rifle through a collapsing bunker on Titan. He died buying time for evacuation. He died. But now... Cole stared into the hollow face of someone who bore his name, and none of his soul. "He's gone," Cole said. "Whatever's in that file, it's not him." Riggs added, "It's leading the next Velan fleet." And just like that, the silence shattered. The Crucible's long-range sensors lit up like flares. Velan ships, dozens, massing just beyond known space. No broadcasts, no scans, just slow, precise movement. They weren't posturing anymore. They were coming. Cole stared out into the dark, heart hammering in his chest. "They're not trying to conquer," he muttered. "They're trying to complete the experiment." 3 hours later, the Crucible met with the Ashborn fleet at the edge of a derelict satellite belt in the shadow of a dead star. Faye's ship, the Harbinger, hovered quietly beside the Crucible, its hull still bearing the scars of 100 skirmishes. Inside the Ashborn war room, the tone was grim. "They're deploying him," Faye said. "They're deploying Declan as the centerpiece of their assault. He's broadcasting something, a frequency we can't decrypt. Every time he activates it, our perimeter fighters lose focus. Reaction time slows, like they're being softened." Cole said nothing. A low hum rattled from his clenched jaw. His eyes never left the holographic model of the Velan fleet. Faye stepped forward. "We need to prepare for mass psychological warfare. This isn't just about bullets anymore." "We beat the Council," said Commander Brent, her second in command. "But the Velans don't play politics. They won't retreat." Riggs patched in. "They're building toward a point of origin. Intercept patterns show all ships converging toward the Caldrift corridor. We think that's where Declan's base is. Faye's gaze turned to Cole. We'll need someone to go in first, fast, alone. Create a distraction. Buy us time to get into position. Cole didn't blink. I'll go. Faye hesitated. You sure? He looked her dead in the eye. That thing has my brother's voice. I'm not letting someone else end it. 3 days later, the crucible jumped into the Caldrift corridor. Space there was broken, scarred by old wormhole collapses and shattered moons. The light itself felt wrong, like the stars were blinking in fear. And at its center was him. Declan Harlan, suspended in orbit inside a Velan fusion cage, surrounded by obsidian warships. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He just pulsed, his body broadcasting that eerie, mind-breaking frequency. Cole's first volley hit without warning, direct shot to the outer ring of drone escorts. 2 down, 3 more disabled by EMP flare bursts. Declan stirred. For the first time in 10 years, Cole heard his brother's voice. You should not be here. Cole gritted his teeth. Neither should you. A pause. Then Declan's voice shifted. No longer robotic. More personal. I saw what you did, brother. Earth burned, and you survived. I fought, Cole said. You let them make you a tool. Declan laughed, a soft, lifeless sound. I didn't fight them. I became them. Then the assault began. The Valens launched every interceptor they had, an entire wave of needle-fast ships, spiraling like hornets, bound for the crucible. But Cole wasn't flying blind. He was angry. He danced through the barrage like he was born for it, shields flaring, wings scorched, nose cannons roaring like thunder. Every ship he downed whispered the same thing into his mind. This is what you took from me. This is what I give back. Then came the final run, directly toward Declan's cage. The crucible shook violently. Lights died. One of the engines flared red and failed. Cole pushed forward anyway. Declan's voice hissed again. You can't save Earth, Cole. You can only avenge it. Cole aimed straight at the power core holding his brother in stasis, and said nothing. He fired. The cage cracked. Sparks flew. Declan screamed. A sound that didn't come from lungs. It came from somewhere else. Then his ship began to fall apart. Cole turned hard, escaping just as the structure detonated behind him in a ring of fire and collapsing energy. He didn't look back. Because Declan Harlan, the last broken echo of betrayal, was gone. And with him, the core of Project Him. The crucible limped through the outer rings of the Drackhold wastes, its engines rattling with fractured fuel lines, armor scorched black, and thrusters coughing up radiation. Riggs was bleeding warnings through every system. Coolant leak, hull breach, shields at 22%. And that core? She's hating you right now, Cole. Cole didn't respond. His hands worked in silence, sealing fuel bypasses and routing power through emergency batteries. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by sheer, empty focus. Declan was dead. But not before he whispered something that had burned into Cole's brain like acid. The Council doesn't want to win. They want to erase. Erase what? Not just the Resistance? Not just the Crucible? Erase the memory of Earth, the truth, the defiance, the shame of what they let happen. Faye patched in from the Harbinger. Her face looked more gaunt than ever. You really did it, she said, voice hoarse. Declan's gone. The Velans are retreating from 6 sectors. Their prototype failed. Cole stared past the screen, voice deadpan. Failed to control me. Failed to rewrite what we are. She nodded slowly. Then they'll switch tactics. He turned to the monitor. Riggs, pull Coalition transmission feeds. Unfiltered. I want to see what they're pushing. A dozen propaganda reels hit the screen at once, broadcasts from council-controlled media hubs, polished, scripted, and full of venom. Human extremist Cole Harlan launches illegal strike on peaceful Velan research vessels. The Crucible, renegade AI ship responsible for destabilizing trade across the quadrant. Resistance terror networks hiding biological weapons from pre-Terran ruins, Riggs growled. They're rewriting the narrative already. Cole didn't flinch. They're trying to burn the truth out of history. But that wasn't all. A new report flashed across the screen, this one encrypted and buried deep in diplomatic channels. Council authorizes Omega Directive, full deployment of Cleanse Protocol in Outer Fringe. Cole froze. Faye's voice cracked across comms again. That's not real. That can't be real. Omega Directive was outlawed after the Thessex War. No, Cole said. It was shelved, not erased. Riggs confirmed it. Omega Protocol equals total data sterilization, not just physical assault. They're going to hit comm relays, info satellites, archives, memory cores. Kill the message, Cole muttered. Kill the legend. Faye sounded distant. They're going to wipe every trace of Earth, the Resistance, and you. And make it look like we never existed, Cole finished. A long silence. Then he turned toward the map. What's the target? Cole Harlan didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who'd run out of time. He stood on the deck of the Harbinger, watching the Crucible float nearby, crippled, scorched, but still alive. He should have felt proud. He should have felt finished. But he didn't, because it wasn't over. Riggs' voice hummed in his ear as the Resistance fleet circled above Ceres 4. You need to see this. I've been digging through the backup files from the memory spike. The stuff we pulled out of the Saris archives. There's something buried in the Crucible's architecture. Something you were never meant to access. Cole narrowed his eyes. Talk to me. It's an override protocol, deep core. Not from Earth, not from us. He froze. Velan? No, Riggs said grimly. Council, a late-stage implantation. Built after the Crucible launched. Remote-activated failsafe. Meant to fry the core from the inside if it ever went off script. Cole clenched his jaw. So they put a leash on me. Worse, Riggs said. They didn't think they could control you, so they gave themselves a kill switch. Faye stepped into the room, her expression already hard. You need to disable it. Cole didn't move. Can't, Riggs said. It's locked behind biometric encryption. Faye frowned. Whose? Cole already knew. His voice came out low and bitter. Mine. Back aboard the Crucible, Cole stood inside the core chamber, the place where it had all started, where Earth's last line of defense had been forged in silence and hidden from the galaxy's shame. The lights were dim. The core pulsed slowly, weak from damage, but still humming. Still dangerous. Riggs' voice guided him through the chamber as screens lit up with encrypted data. They were clever, Riggs said. Built this code so deep it needed neural feedback to even show its presence. But once we hit Ceres, once the Crucible was downed, it triggered the final phase. Cole read the screen. One word blinked in red. OBLIVIONMODEPENDINGINITIATIONA. Timer pulsed beneath it. 22 hours. 41 minutes. 16 seconds. What happens when it hits zero? Cole asked. Riggs hesitated. The core detonates. No chain reaction. No noble explosion. It just dies, and takes all stored memory data with it. Faye's voice crackled through comms. That includes the Saris vault backups. Everything the Crucible touched. Cole didn't flinch. So it's not just a kill switch for the ship. It's a kill switch for the truth, Riggs said. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Cole said 2 words. Shut it down. Riggs replied, quiet and strained. We can't. The biometric key, Faye said, catching on. It requires a complete override using your brainwave signature. Cole already knew where this was going. What does it take? Riggs didn't sugarcoat it. You have to lock yourself into the core cycle. Your neural feedback becomes the new command loop. Cole looked at the massive energy chamber, the pulsating machine responsible for every act of vengeance he'd carried out. His ship, his weapon, his curse. If I plug into that, he said, I don't come back, do I? Silence. Faye's voice came through soft. No. Hours passed. The Harbinger went silent. Resistance fleets pulled back into orbit. No one gave orders. No one asked questions. They all knew something was happening aboard the crucible. Inside, Cole walked the hallways of the ship one last time. He paused by the crew quarters, once filled with Earth's finest. All gone now, just ashes and ghosts. He passed the medbay, still stained from his last wound. He passed Declan's locker, still untouched from the day the mission launched. And then he stopped by the cockpit. He ran his fingers along the chair, the panel, the cracked console glass. The crucible had never failed him. Even when it broke, even when it burned, it fought. Because it was human, not in code, in soul. Riggs whispered, You sure about this? Cole exhaled. No one else left to do it? Faye's voice cracked softly into the chamber. There's always someone. Doesn't have to be you. He smiled bitterly. It was always going to be me. He stepped into the core chamber and slid the neural spike into his neck. Riggs screamed, Cole, wait! The chamber ignited. Pain hit like 1,000 volts through his skull. His vision blurred. Nerve endings lit up like wildfires. He felt the crucible inside him now, felt every scar on its hull, every circuit, every memory. The core throbbed as if breathing. The override prompt appeared. Confirm neural binding? Cole's thoughts weren't his own anymore. They were the crucible's. He wasn't a man plugged into a ship. He was the ship. Confirm? YN. He thought. Yes. The system locked. Neural binding complete. Manual override active. Oblivion mode terminated. Then everything went dark. Outside, the crucible's lights dimmed. Faye stood on the bridge of the Harbinger, eyes locked on the ship she'd fought beside, the man she'd trusted. Riggs scanned. Looks like they're moving toward Ceres 4, independent system, archive world. It has the largest unfiltered pre-fall memory bank in the quadrant, if they cleanse it. They kill the last free truth, Cole said. He stood, slow and tired, but steady. Then we stop them. 2 days later, the crucible, still limping, still leaking, jumped into Ceres 4 orbit. It was already too late. 3 council warships were in position, shielded, armed, and charging plasma lances for a full planetary bombardment. Below, Ceres the 4th glowed faintly beneath its thick cloud cover, a planet of dust, wind, and buried data vaults. The crucible drifted in behind an asteroid field, quiet. Faye's fleet hadn't arrived yet. Cole was alone. Riggs spoke softly. 1 ship, 3 heavy destroyers. You know the math. Yeah. He flicked switches, began overloading the crucible's starboard weapon array. Running a bluff? Cole didn't answer. He wasn't bluffing. He patched into the open comms. The council ships didn't respond. He didn't expect them to. He simply transmitted one thing. You erase us. You erase the only thing keeping this galaxy from tearing itself apart. And then he launched. The crucible roared out of the asteroid belt like a dying star, shields glowing red, wings groaning under acceleration. One of the council ships blinked in surprise and began to reorient its turrets. Too slow. Cole fired 2 graviton bursts, followed by 3 high-density slugs. 1 missed, 2 didn't. The lead destroyer's hull cracked open, gas venting, lights flickering. But the others retaliated fast. A plasma spear struck the crucible across the belly. Sparks rained down across the bridge. Cole barely kept the ship level. "Cole, we're losing structural integrity," Riggs barked. "I know." Another shot. The left engine died. The crucible tilted, falling toward the planet. Cole didn't fight it. He let it drop. The crash shook the old desert plains of Saris IV. Dust choked the air for miles. Ancient archive towers trembled under the shockwave. And yet the crucible was still breathing, battered, crippled, but alive. Cole pulled himself from the wreckage, face bleeding, ribs cracked. He grabbed a rifle and a memory spike from the storage rack, then stepped into the hot wind. He could already see the Council dropships descending. They weren't just going to burn the archives from orbit. They were going to storm them, erase them block by block. Not on his watch. He sprinted through the sand toward the first data vault. Inside, automated systems still blinked, still humming after hundreds of years. The vault was old, pre-war Earth AI, built to last. Cole plugged in the spike. Riggs's voice crackled from a portable speaker. "We're tapped in. Archive stable? For now?" "How long to copy it all?" "Too long." Cole wiped blood from his lip. "Then we defend it." Council soldiers landed in waves, armored, faceless, well-trained. Cole fought like a man possessed. He used the crucible's wreckage for cover, drawing them into choke points, triggering micro-mines, and rerouting broken defense drones. They kept coming. He kept killing. Every second bought Riggs more time. Every body dropped was another heartbeat of memory saved. He took a round to the leg, kept moving. Shrapnel in his shoulder, kept firing. He wasn't fighting to live. He was fighting so Earth wouldn't die again. And just when the final wave surged over the dunes, dozens of armored figures storming the vault. Cole heard it. A low, rising thunder. The Harbinger broke through the clouds in a blaze of hellfire. Faye's fleet dropped in behind her, fighters screaming down, guns flashing. Ashborn warriors hit the ground like comets, flanking the Council troops and cutting through them like blades through cloth. Faye landed beside Cole as he fell to one knee. "You all right?" she asked, hauling him up. "Not even close," he wheezed. "But the archives?" Riggs buzzed in triumph. "Fully uploaded, backed across 6 independent relays. The memory lives." Cole let out a breath. The first in hours that didn't feel like poison. They'd done it. The truth would survive. Back aboard the Harbinger, Cole lay in a med bed, patched up but barely holding together. He looked out at the stars and listened as Riggs listed the latest reports. 57 systems have now broken from the Council. 9 fleets pledged support to the Resistance. Half the quadrant saw you on Saris IV. Faye stepped in, arms crossed, eyes softer than before. "You're not just a symbol now, Cole." He didn't answer. "People believe in you." He turned his head, voice raw. "I didn't want that." "I know," she said quietly. "But you earned it anyway." He stared out at the void. The Council would fight back. The Valens might return. But history had been written. Not by fleets, not by empires. By one man. By fire. "Status?" she whispered. Riggs came through the comms, but different now. Slower. Lower. "Core stabilized. Override neutralized. Memory archives secure." Faye blinked. "Riggs, you sound—" A pause. Then, "He's here," Riggs said. "Cole's here. Not in body, but in code. He gave himself to the ship." Faye's throat clenched. "You mean, he's the crucible now?" In the weeks that followed, Resistance systems celebrated their first true victory. The Council fractured. Half its member worlds defected. The Omega Directive was denounced. Leaders resigned or disappeared. tribunals began. The Vaylens? They vanished. Some said they retreated to their homeworlds. Others said they were watching, waiting for a new plan. But no one saw them again. And the crucible? It didn't move. It hovered in orbit around Saris 4, quiet, a grave, a monument, a warning. But every time a council ship entered the system, something strange happened, a faint pulse in their nav systems, a recorded message that played over comms. We are the fire you buried. We are the ghost you tried to erase. And we remember. People began calling the crucible something else, the last sentinel. It never spoke. But its presence spoke volumes, because even if Cole Harlan no longer breathed, he was still there, watching, remembering, ready to burn it all again if the galaxy forgot what he stood for. Epilogue. 3 years later. A small freighter drifted near Saris 4. A boy sat in the cockpit, no older than 16, scanning the stars with wide eyes. His father sat behind him, weathered, quiet. "Is that the ship?" the boy asked, pointing. The father nodded. "The crucible. Nobody goes near it anymore." "Why?" "Because he's still in there." "Who?" The father looked at the dark hull of the ship. Its lights blinked faintly, just once. "His name was Cole Harlan, the last man who told the galaxy the truth." The boy stared in silence. And somewhere deep inside the crucible, a low hum answered. Not mechanical. Human.